American segregation and racism came. Many whites did not want African Americans in office or have any rights in the U.S., so many segregation laws soon come. Many journalists and activists like Ida D. Wells, who was a journalist and an activist, who began to write about the issues of racism in the South after having a personal incident of her own, experiencing racism firsthand, would come and defend African Americans in the U.S. and try to get them equal rights. Ida D. Wells would soon later write about lynching and how it was bad, and led anti-lynching crusades, putting her life at risk when others would threaten her to kill her if she continued, but she still did it. Another person would be Booker T. Washington, the professor who created a black university, and his goal was to create more education in schools for blacks in the U.S. He would make the first black university, Tuskegee College, and he would use his way of words to inspire people to look at this hatred as a motivation to strive and become better. Although many activists in the civil rights movements would come, this would not stop segregation in the U.S. Segregation would still grow, and after a few months, and the Cassidy vs. Ferguson, a doctrine described as equal and separate, authorized by the Supreme Court separating blacks from whites in institutions. Segregation was now a law in the United States and would lead to Jim Crow's law later on. These laws would discriminate African Americans all over the United States.
The 19th century had a great influx of about 3.5 million newcomers from Southern and Eastern Europe. Nativists saw these newcomers as inferior and criminals. Often they fought for the immigrants not being able to vote without citizenship. Politician James G. Blaine saw the Chinese as abominable, dangerous, and revolting. This view was held by all parties in America. In the 1850s, Chinese workers came through labor contracts to work in gold fields, railroads, and factories. Soon entire families came along, causing Congress in 1875 to exclude women from entering. In 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act passed by Congress barred all Chinese from entering America. As a result of this, Chinese people living in America faced great discrimination from mobs. Drawing from Reconstruction-era ideas, the Chinese began to sue local governments, as in the case of Tate vs. Hurley in 1885, where they received a segregated education system and a Chinese-only school. A few years later, U.S. vs. Wong Kim Ark made the 14th Amendment apply to all Chinese born on U.S. soil. But, in the case of Fang Yu-ting in 1893, the federal government was allowed to expel Chinese aliens without due process of law. Overall, the case of Fang Yu-ting in 1893 brought discrimination to not only the Chinese but other European immigrants as well.
During the Gilded Age, many women challenged their prescribed place in society and faced many issues in doing so, as they fought for their vision of political, social, and economic equality. Some of the issues women faced are: they could not vote. In most states, women could not have control of their property or custody of their children in the case of divorce, and there were no legal protections for women and children, and prosecutions for rape were rare, as the state-regulated age of consent was as low as 7 years old. An early proponent of women's rights was a woman by the name of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was a pioneer of the women's suffrage movement and of women's rights. She later became the organizer of the Seneca Falls Convention and continued to contribute to the women's rights movement. The National Women American Suffrage Association, also known as the NAWSA, focused on women's right to vote as they advocated for the end of inequality and discrimination towards women on job opportunities and an easier process for divorce from husbands. The Women's Christian Temperance Union, also known as the WCTU, was established by women who were concerned about the destructive power of alcohol in their families, and the protest thereof became known as Women's Crusades. The crusade against alcohol was a protest by women, in part, of their lack of civil rights and the fight for equality.